Dolphins Today mailbag coming to you on this Sunday afternoon. I am Nic Rohloff. This is Miami Dolphins Today. Hopefully everyone is having a good 4th of July weekend, and let's answer some Dolphins questions. The first one being a fun one. Anthony Manzano, besides Malik Washington, who is my favorite pick that the Dolphins had this year, who is another underrated draft pick. Answer is pretty simple to me. It's Mohamed Kamara, the 5th-round pick out of Colorado State. And I'm not going to say like a Chop Robinson here and answer that because that's not underrated. He was the first pick the Dolphins made. But when you think of what Mohamed Kamara can bring you out as a 5th-rounder, he gives you that 5th edge position, which is necessary considering Bradley Chubbs and Jalen Phillips are so-so in their injury health going into the season. Kamara was very productive as a Colorado State Ram in his final year in college. He wrecked that game. And we know Colorado had a bad offensive line last year, but he was the best player on the field when Colorado State and Colorado matched up in week 2 of the college football season last year. He had 3+ sacks in that game. He is a aggressive player. He has a drive and will to win, a fire inside him to be the best player he could possibly be. And he said after he got drafted to the Dolphins media that he is just going to go on a tear to prove all other 29 teams wrong about why they should have picked him earlier in the draft. So I'm glad he's on our team. And I think Mo Kamara, even though he might not have the largest role because he is that 4th or 5th edge rusher, when he's on the field, he will be making a positive impact for the Miami Dolphins. Make sure you are following us on our Instagram. At Dolphins Today IG is our handle. We just crossed 300 followers. When we get to 500 followers on IG, we're going to do an Instagram-led mailbag. So it's a little bit different than the mailbag like this one. We'll answer questions specifically from our IG DM. So go give us a follow, and when we cross there, we'll have a fun video at Dolphins Today IG. Jody Miller, does Tua Tagovailoa deserve a big contract? Well, this is a fascinating way because I think there's a different way to answer this in terms of deserving and getting, right? Does he deserve it? Probably not. Like, when I think of what Tua deserves, he's had one consistent season in the NFL, and it was this past year. We played all 17 games, led the league in passing with 4,600 passing yards. But prior to that in his career, he's missed a lot of games. He showed why he has some haters out there with the lack of arm strength and lack of ability to win in outdoors, cold environments late in the season. But when you think about what other quarterbacks are getting paid and how the Dolphins probably can't find a better quarterback to replace Tua, either in the draft or free agency or the trade market in the next 2 seasons, then yes, you have to pay Tua Tagovailoa. And I do think he's a top 12 quarterback in all of football. I don't think he's worthy of $52, $55 million. If it was in a vacuum, I think it's $47, $48 million. But because the quarterback market is the market, you got to pay him the $52, $53 million, and I am going to be doing that if I would be GM. Josiah Powell, the Dolphins need to extend Jevon Holland and pay Tua. We just talked about Tua Tagovailoa, so we'll more look at this question with a Jevon Holland lens. I have been very outspoken about how I think Miami needs to extend Jevon Holland before this season begins. Why, you might ask? Well, when you think of the Dolphins secondary, think of its top pieces. Kendall Fuller, who they signed in free agency on a 2-year deal. Jalen Ramsey, who is nearing, I wouldn't say nearing the end of his career, but he's not getting any younger. He's only going to decline. The other safety you have is Jordan Poyer. So when you think of the starting secondary members around Jevon Holland, these guys are long veterans in the NFL. Holland is your only young piece in the secondary, and I do not want to risk losing him in free agency, considering he's already a top 5, top 7 safety in the National Football League. I don't know what his market would be and what he'd get paid on an annual average basis from Miami. But I do believe it is absolutely necessary to get an extension done with Jevon Holland because worst case scenario, you don't get an extension done with Tua as well prior to the season beginning. If you go into the season with both Holland and Tua not extended, that means you risk one of them going into free agency because you can't use the franchise tag on both of them. So if you're able to extend Jevon Holland and not get something done with Tua, it gives you a little bit of flexibility because you can say, well, franchise tag Tua so he can't hit the open market, and it just buys you more time to extend him next offseason. To me, getting Jevon Holland extended this offseason is a massive priority. Cortland with a question. Rolly, what's your biggest concern on the Dolphins before training camp? It's the obvious one, right? It's right guard. It is. Like, who's starting there? Am I trusting Robert Jones, or I would like to sign Greg Van Roten to be the starting right guard. But am I trusting Robert Jones? Am I trusting Lester Cotton, Liam Eichenberg, Jack Driscoll? It will be a battle to see which one prevails and ends up starting week 1 against the Jaguars at that right guard spot. But it's no doubt the biggest concern on this team. But a close second concern, other than the Tua and Jevon Holland extensions, is the health of Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips. Because if they're not fully healthy and ready to go week 1 against the Jaguars, your pass rush is going to be relying on 2 rookies in Mo Kamara, Chop Robinson, and a veteran Shaq Barrett. Like, I hope one of them is ready to go, if not both, but that is also a pretty big concern for me as we head to training camp in a couple weeks. Fin Addict, is that Sanders kid out there playing for the CU Buffs a future possibility for the Fins? You're talking about a little Sheduer Sanders, the quarterback for Colorado, obviously the son of Deion Sanders. Also, can't believe that we have had 2 Colorado mentions in this mailbag, but here we are. No. I think Sheduer Sanders is going to be coming out to the draft next year, and assuming that he has a season better than last year's for Colorado at QB, he will likely be a top 10, top 15 pick in the NFL draft. And to me, I am going to hope that the Dolphins aren't picking top 15 and they're picking in the mid to late 20s. Well, actually, hopefully 32, because they're going to be Super Bowl champions. But I don't think he'll be an option. The only possible way he could be an option in my eyes is if he doesn't perform well next year, slides into the late first, maybe late second round, and Tua doesn't sign an extension, and then they go there. But I think Tua ultimately does get extended eventually, and you're not drafting Sheduer Sanders in the top 2 rounds if you do that. Kevin Main 305. Can we pass the first round of the playoffs? I do think it's possible, and I would actually make it the most likely. Most likely might be a strong way to put that, but I've talked about it on a different mailbag yesterday, actually, that I believe that the expectations for this Dolphins team should be to win the AFC East. The Patriots aren't ready to contend. The Jets stink. The Bills took a step back in their roster. So you are the top roster in the AFC East, if you're asking me. And as long as Mike McDaniel and Tua don't shit down their leg at the end of the year, they should win the AFC East and have a minimum record of 11-6. That was my prediction, and I think that's really attainable. You go 11-6, you win the AFC East, you host a playoff game, you win that playoff game, you're in the divisional round. So yes, I do think the Dolphins can pass the first round of the playoffs. I would predict it, and that's what I'm hoping they do as well. Well, hopefully Tua Tagovailoa can win MVP, because if he has that good of a season, that means the Dolphins are really going places. Does Tua have a chance to win MVP this upcoming year? Type Y for yes or type N for no. I think he does, because if the Dolphins do go 11-6, he has 4,600 passing yards again, and also throws for, maybe 38, 39 touchdowns, improves by 8 or 9 touchdowns from a year ago. I think the MVP conversations will absolutely be there. What should be in MVP conversations is how good this deal is. $25 off these 2 perfectly clean, sleek-looking Dolphins t-shirts. I got mine. Get yours today. Chatsports.com/Dolphins combo is the link. It will be in the description and comments of today's video. $25 off. What else could you ask for? Sherry May, the real one. Is Cam going to be utilized? Why did Fangio hold him back like that? Assuming you're talking about Cam Smith, who obviously as a rookie last year was a top 55 selection from the Miami Dolphins out of South Carolina to play cornerback, only played 20 defensive snaps last year for the Fins. Big disappointment. It was probably the biggest disappointment of the entire year outside of collapsing late down the season. Like, you wanted to see more out of your rookie second-round corner. But I do expect him to get more PT this year. I think Anthony Weaver is going to really unlock his game in year 2. Now, I will say this. I'm going to be a little bit of a pessimist on Cam Smith's future because I'm not so sure what his role will be. Yes, he will get more snaps than 20, but crossing your fingers, Kendall Fuller and Jalen Ramsey stay healthy for 16, 17 games. There just isn't really a pathway for Cam Smith to get a ton of playing time because those two can be on the field all the time in their coverage, their tackling, and ball hawking ability. Like, you hope those two are on the field most of the time. So Cam Smith might be in the trail, but if Cam Smith gets on the field, I do expect him to have a pretty good season. Jay Hack, if the Dolphins do sign Greg Van Roten, who gets dropped from the O-line? I think this is a very easy answer if you're asking me, and to me, it would be Lester Cotton. Like, we did my Dolphins 53-man roster projection video a couple of days ago, and I had Lester making the team, but to me, that spot would just be replaced by Greg Van Roten. That is in the long term, though, like near the season. If the Dolphins ended up signing Greg Van Roten, some bad offensive lineman that was a UDFA, maybe Ireland Brown or something like that, would probably be cut. Like, that's kind of what the short-term answer would be. But if you're asking who would make the 53-man roster right now that wouldn't anymore because of Greg Van Roten, I'd probably give you the answer of Lester Cotton. Be subscribed to get the best Dolphins news as quickly as possible. If Greg Van Roten does sign with the Dolphins, which we've been talking about quite a bit, we will be the first to get you with a video on YouTube. So make sure that you turn on those notifications as well. Fanatic with another question. This was in reference to our 53-man roster projection and why I said, if you need to cut one of Salvon Ahmed or Chris Brooks, which one would you do and why? He's asking that same question. If I had to answer it, I am cutting Salvon Ahmed over Chris Brooks. I think Chris Brooks showed some nice things. He's entering his second year out of BYU for this Dolphins team. I also think he provides more special teams value than Salvon Ahmed does. Ahmed has had a solid career. He's been with the Finns for a while, but I think he would be out and Chris Brooks would be in. I think he just has more of a chance to impact this roster on a greater force and has a higher upside, as we don't know what Brooks can offer in full. We kind of know that with Ahmed. Chris with another question. Will Tua be healthy for all 17 games again this year? I sure hope so. I mean, I do. Because if he's not, we're going to have another conversation in the offseason about Tua Tagovailoa's future. Played 17 games last year. He did the jiu-jitsu stuff in the offseason to help him land better and not take so many hard falls. Hopefully that continues. Tua also lost a ton of weight this offseason, getting more leaner, which will allow him to be more agile in the pocket, which hopefully allows him to avoid more hits. So I am going to go out on the limb and say Tua will play another 17 games this year. If he does that, I'm going to be feeling really good about how this Dolphins season shakes out. Like I said off the top, make sure you're following us on Instagram at Dolphins Today. IG is our handle. Go give us a follow for more Dolphins content and coverage in between our videos here on YouTube. And when we get to 500, we're doing a Dolphins Today IG-led Q&A. So go give us a follow. I'll see you with another video tomorrow. Go Fins.